Hi, everyone. Thank you for being with us. I hope all is well with you and your families wherever you are. On behalf of Avenues the World School, I would like to thank all of you that are attending this OPEN.Ed event. My name is Dan. I am a part of the founding faculty at Avenues São Paulo, and prior to that, I was at Avenues New York. I'm excited to be here. Today we have Stephen Little to talk about mindfulness in times of uncertainty, the significance of being alive. I should probably properly introduce Stephen. Stephen is originally from Dublin, Ireland, and began practicing mindfulness in 1991. He's one of the founding faculty of the School of Life here in São Paulo and is known for his immersive workshops, classes, and retreats. He is an ordained Buddhist and physicist and has long guided mindfulness in the difficult circumstances of the cancer wards at Albert Einstein and at Emilio Kibas hospitals. As our lives have entered quarantine, he invites all to return to a familiar, essential question. What does it mean to really live? Thanks again and welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, lovely to hear from you and to meet you, even though it's online. So yeah, who would have known that we would be online during April in this kind of format? I'm very, very glad and delighted and grateful for the invite that Fernando and Dan have made to be with you today and to share with you a practice that I learned, as Dan said, in 1991 in the cold of Ireland in Dublin, which I practice every day since then. It was May of 1991. I was 21 years old. And I've, as Dan said, I've been part of a number of projects because of my short scientific background in the early 90s. I've come back since arriving in Brazil in 2002 to science and to research in a few of my partnerships, especially with Elisa Kozaza at the Brain Institute in the Einstein Hospital and with the people at Emilio Kibas. I've been involved in researching the effects of this practice and this principle on the lives of people who are going through health crises. And it is kind of, it's funny in a way, an Irishman here in Brazil during, this unprecedented lockdown and instability. And I'm finding it difficult to speak about the thing that I most love in English. I since 2005, I've been teaching this particular practice in a number of different places, normally in the form of an 8-week program. And it is just kind of strange to be teaching it in English because usually it's in Portuguese. However, it's a delight to bring to you a few of my reflections from my teachers and the people who were and are involved in the classes and courses that I facilitate around Brazil. So, well, yeah, I think that's enough. I mean, think in terms of me, I think you probably can read or hear things about me. I think it's a good idea that we get on with introducing the topic. And I've brought a few slides. And the first slide is something that might be very familiar to you if you're in Sao Paulo, it definitely will be familiar because the last 2 evenings have been like this. Yeah, gradually the sun has been going down and leaving an autumn evening sky. And of course, I was among the many Brazilians who took the photographs and put them on Facebook and online. But I was very taken by the beauty of this particular time of day, which is probably happening now. I'm in a studio, so I can't see, there's no windows here. So I've brought this topic about what does it mean to be alive. When I was younger, I was curious about the meaning of life. I'm more interested nowadays in what does it mean to live, this very brief candle that will be blown out at some stage. And while we're here, it's a mystery to most of us, and the most part of our lives present themselves as a mystery. The future is completely mysterious as far as I'm concerned. And one sign of the mystery is when there's a greater number of experts giving opinions about the future. Yeah, that is a certain sign for me that very few of them really know what's going on. So yeah, there are a lot of things coinciding in this image here. And I'd like to, well, evoke a story which I once heard. It was a story told by an English journalist who actually wasn't English. He was born in Africa. And the story is very strange. His life started with an abduction. He was abducted only with a few months of age. And he was taken from the small township, simple township where he lived. And he was sold to an English family where in England he was raised, and he went to college and became a journalist. And then at one point in his life, he decided to research his origins, and he returned to Africa, and he tells the story of the emotional re-encounter with his family in that very same village where he was born, a very, very simple village in Africa. So the story goes that at the end of the first day, he went to his room, which they had given him, and he was lying down on his bed with the lamp on, reading, as he always did. And then there was a knock on the door, and the whole family opened the door and looked in, and they said, "What are you doing?" And he replied, "Well, what do you mean? What am I doing? I'm reading." They said, "Come here." So he left his book and he went out, and he noticed that the whole house was getting darker. There was no electric light on. And when he went out onto the veranda, or what we call in Ireland, the porch, he noticed that everybody was sitting in the dusk as the sun was setting. Everyone was quiet and looking at him. And then he looked across the street, and the people in the other house in front were also sitting on the porch. And then he realized the whole village had gone home, and they were all sitting on their porches quietly watching the sky get darker. And there were no electric lights turned on. So he said that he sat down, and with wonder, he sat with that family as the light dimmed and dimmed, just as it did last night and the night before, and is doing now. And then when it finished, he thought that everybody was going to get up and talk, but everybody stayed silent and remained in the dark for a while. And then lights went on. The house lights, the electric lights. So the journalist was very, very curious. He said, "Well, why do you stay in the dark at the end of the sunset?" And the family replied, we don't turn on the lights. We stay in the dark in order to see. We remain in the dark in order to see. So that's the story I want to bring. And really, my idea here is to bring a reflection. When was the last time that you stayed and watched the whole spectacle of the eyelid of the day closing? Did you do that last night or the night before last? Maybe in lockdown you've been doing that each day. Did you stay in the dark here's a house and the lights are switched on. So it's not exactly the image that the journalist went through in his village. And it is true that the eyelid of the day does close every day, and it's happening right now. So what I would like to propose is that we do a little experiment. And I've been doing this twice a day online on Instagram and Facebook at 8 o'clock in the morning and 4:30 in the afternoon. I've just done it with a bunch of people. It's about 120 people on Instagram. I don't know how many people on Facebook. And what we're doing is we're doing it every day. And we started at the beginnings of the lockdown 3 or 4 weeks ago. And what I say is, okay, let's close our eyelids in order to see. That's the idea. And we can basically just get into the state, first of all, with our eyes open. And what I would suggest is that this is it's a little experiment, and you don't need to write anything or anything like that. Just basically, if you have a pen, you can put it down. If you have a smartphone, just put it to one side and just open up to the experience and the perception of the room that you're already in. And maybe it's a place that you know very well. It's this studio I know very well. And what I would say is appreciate your perception and open up to any impression, visual, sound, smell, that you haven't noticed before. And this is the climate of the experiment. Just open up to any impression, temperature maybe, that you haven't noticed before in the external world. And now the idea is, let's close consciously the eyelids in a light way in order to maintain our perception of the outer world and the outer impressions. And also maintain this openness to impressions that we may not have noticed beforehand. Maybe sounds or temperature, smells. And now, with that same quality of attention, become aware of your body and the form of your body sitting wherever you are. If there's any discomfort or pain in your posture that you can relieve, well, if you're perceiving that now and you can relieve it, well, why don't you make some small adjustments so that you can have a posture that's more comfortable and suffer a little bit less. And just now bringing your awareness and attention into your body and opening up as you move into your body, inside, opening up to the impressions inside your body, whatever they are. So maybe they're biological impressions of heartbeat or temperature or the breath. And open up as well to any subtle sensations that tend to go by unnoticed. Maybe some emotions or impulses, some thoughts maybe. And maintaining your presence as you open up to your experience just as it is at this moment. And bringing your mind now, bringing your attention to your eyelids again. And I'm just going to ring a bell and invite you to open your eyes. And if you have the desire to keep your eyes closed, that's completely understandable. However, the practice has now ended. Well, almost opening your eyes, just being aware of where you're at. Great. And just noticing again where you are. Good. Okay, so that was a pause. And I deliberately didn't talk about meditation, or I simplified everything so that you could just close your eyes to notice what's already here. And that's basically what I teach. Because it's kind of curious. I don't know if you notice this, but I don't know about you. My habit is automatically not to connect with what's already happening. I tend to disconnect. And this training has helped me to notice that and to value being here with my experience and knowing how I am. Well, as I've taught this, I've learned from other people how valuable this can be, especially in the research projects we did with SESI and the National Confederation of Industry, which were the results were published 2 years ago in Frontiers, which is a Swiss magazine, a scientific journal. One person who came along one time, a young lady who had obviously come out of an interview or some sort of congress or something like that. She was very well dressed. She was in the front row of a group of people who had come to a nightly class that I was giving. And we did this very practice. And, you know, the atmosphere becomes quite open and curious. So I open my eyes, and we don't have interaction the way we had that night because it was live and I could ask questions. And so I asked, okay, anybody got any new perceptions? And her hand went up. She said, yeah, I noticed something. So I was curious, what did you notice? She looked down and she said, you know something, these shoes are very tight. And there was a light kind of giggle in the audience. And I thought that was wonderful. And I said to her, well, I asked her, well, had you noticed? And she said, no, I've been using them all day. I've been wearing them all day. I had noticed. I hadn't until now. And then, you know, I'm going to say something. What happened next isn't like a miracle or amazing. She opened up her shoes. And maybe you're there at home thinking, God, I should have done something different. This guy is telling a story. I don't know why he's telling the story. It's a lady opened up her shoes. I'm lost. Well, let me just sort of stay with that, because that was actually a very, very important moment in my life. What that lady taught me was something that I've never forgotten. In fact, I remember her until today, and other people who went through similar experiences with these pauses. To some extent, she is a metaphor, and her shoes are a metaphor for what's happening to all of us. Her shoes were too tight beforehand. And when she perceived that, she realized that that suffering, that unnecessary suffering, had been going by unnoticed all day. she was suffering unnecessarily. And it was only when she perceived, obviously, what was happening, that she could make the choice to live a better life. Yeah, to live a better life. Now, taking that as a metaphor, what I would say is that everybody here watching this has shoes that are too tight. And I would say, I would guess, but I would pretty much guarantee that all of us want to live better lives. All of us maybe want to change certain habits. All of us would want to maybe organize ourselves in a different way, or come out of this crisis with security and health and maybe a better person, not having lost money. All of us probably want to live better lives. And what I would say is, what's missing isn't the desire to live a better life. I would say what's missing is perception. That's what everybody on my courses and courses that I've seen with other professionals have taught me. The desire to live a better life is constant. That's why you're here. Yeah. What's missing is the perception, and the value of the pause is not to disconnect or to get more focus. It's to perceive what's already here. And that might be a bit of a surprise to you. However, I'm looking after a very old practice, and in all my work, I try to bring it back to the roots. I'm not interested in cheapening the practice to make money. So you might have a few surprises tonight if you've heard about mindfulness before. Mindfulness is paying attention. That's what we just did. And obviously, if you want to deepen mindfulness, there are meditations which you can learn to do that. We don't have much time today to do that, but we've just had an experience of what it is. You close your eyes when you're going to make a pause to see what's already happening. So you pay attention in what is already here. Welcome. Welcome to this moment, and welcome to your life. And maybe if you've closed your eyes to see, maybe something has appeared that has been knocking on your door inside for a long time, that's been wanting to be seen. Welcome to this moment. Like, really, welcome. I mean it. And that's already gone. So welcome to this moment. Well, and that's already gone. And the air that's leaving your lungs and your body at the moment on the out breath will never leave in the same way again. It's gone. Goodbye. Welcome. Like, really welcome to this moment. And that's gone. And the class is almost gone. Yeah, what started at 5:30, which I was waiting for for quite a while today, and anticipating, well, it's almost over. So the present moment isn't just focus, it's much better than that. And if you're feeling a little bit of maybe anxiety or angst as I talk about things going, well, what did you expect? What did you expect? I mean that in the kindest way possible. What did you expect? Isn't that what life is? And so this is an invite. It's not forcing or a cold shower on your head or somebody saying you need to be in the present moment. The invite is to live and to open up intentionally, with a sense of, receiving what is already here. You don't have to be happy all the time when you practice mindfulness. Openness to what's already here doesn't depend on your mental state or your symptoms. It doesn't depend on whether having fever or not. You can be open to what is here, even if you're sad or unhappy. And that is only possible if it's a kind invite. That's what mindfulness is. This is generally the definition I use here in all my work. It's a very simple definition. It's partially most of it has come from the work of Jon Kabat-Zinn, and I've added and embellished a few little things myself, but that's basically what it is. Now, some people really like and groove with definitions. Sometimes a definition is very good, but we need something else. So what I'm going to bring now is a piece of poetry. And I'm going to put the poetry on the slide. And this poetry is a very dear poem in my life. It's a translation from a Japanese poem written quite a while ago by Chozu, a Zen poet from Japan. Let's just see what he says. This is a very dense poem and a short poem. Broken and shattered on the ocean, the reflection of the moon forms again and again. Broken and shattered on the ocean, the reflection of the moon forms again and again. Now this is life encapsulated in a very few words. And depending on the person and the night, we hear, when I put this up on a slide and I ask people to say things, we hear all sorts of wonderful things from people as they relate to this world, this universe that Chozu is creating in such a beautiful and succinct way. Yeah, broken and shattered on the ocean, the reflection of the moon forms again and again. You know, if you look at your life, probably you've had a few falls and knocks in your life. Uncertainty seems to come along quite a bit, and we're going through quite an intense form of that at the moment. I don't need to remind you. And probably you picked yourself up a number of times, and even though you may disconnect from it, there's probably something deep in you, quiet, right deep in there, that knows something about life and how to deal with life when it gets intense. The moon, something that in the midst of the inconstancy and instability is constant. It's whole, complete. And at the same time, you can also see this not as something that you already know. You can also see the moon as something that's within you that is yet to come. Yeah. You flowering, as it were. Your potential as a human being. And I'm not talking just about a human doing your potential in business. I'm talking about you as a person. I find this poem is wonderful. What does the moon mean to you? We're going to have some questions and answers later on. And I hope nobody asks me, because the question's for you. What is the moon? Maybe we should just leave it at that. But I have brought something else, because not everybody likes poetry. Some people like paintings. Now, I love paintings. I do love poetry too. Here's a painting, and it's a chance for an Irishman to tell a story again. J.M. Turner. J.M. Turner was a painter in England, and he was especially renowned for his watercolors and precursor to the Impressionists, although not many people know that, because he was an Englishman. Beautiful. Now, here's the story. One day, he called a friend, and the two of them went to a bay in the south of England. And he asked a friend to tie him, the artist, that is, the friend tied him to a mast, a high mast of a ship that was stationed in the bay. And then the friend went away. Yeah, it's a strange story. And maybe you're thinking, no, he's an Irishman. He's making it up. He's lying. No, I'm not. You can have a look afterwards. And basically what they had planned was that a storm was going to come in, and that Turner, the artist, would open up to the beginning of the storm, the middle of the storm, and the end of the storm. So have a think about that, especially it could have been one of those storms like they've had recently. So there he was, yeah. And that's what he did. And he survived. And the friend came back. I don't know whether the friend went down the pub or hid under somewhere, but he came back. He was a faithful friend, and he released the artist. The artist got down off the boat, off the mast, went to his studio, his atelier, and here's the painting. This is The Tempest, yeah, by J.M. Turner. So look at that. So this is pre-impressionists for anybody who likes art. My question to you is, how often do you really open up to your tempests and storms? Like when you want things a different way and you start to get kind of angry. It happened to me this afternoon. I was making a poster and it wasn't going well, and I tried to send it on WhatsApp, and I thought I could send text as well, and then it didn't work, and I was making lunch at the same time, and I started to burn the lunch. And okay, so how often do you do this, which is completely understandable, and how often do you notice this, and then with a kind of a curiosity, you decide, well, hold on, come here. What's going on? My body, my thoughts, what's happening? How often do we expose ourselves? How often do you expose yourself to a moment of wanting Haagen-Dazs, or wanting to go out walking, but knowing that you could pick up something? Yeah, like COVID-19 maybe. How often do you open up to being in a car in a traffic jam, knowing that you are going to lose the client and you're going to miss the meeting and lose money? How often do you open up to that and notice, well, actually, it's already happening. I am going to miss the meeting. Well, these are two different universes. And I want to talk about this, but I've got one more image to bring. And this is a photograph. And I have to admit, folks, I looked for an image, a symbol of human life, for years. And then in Rio, in a hotel, before a class with the School of Life, on mindfulness at times of uncertainty, I found it. It was on the cover of National Geographic, and here it is. Now, I saw this, and I saw a cell, a human cell, or any cell. I saw a city. Obviously, I saw a house. I saw human beings. Here we have Louisiana. The Mississippi has broken its banks. Anybody who likes Led Zeppelin will know that the levee has broken. And here we have, obviously, it seems, although I haven't interviewed the guy, this farmer has built a wall around his farm. And, you know, that's what we do. What we don't want, we resist. Yeah, we keep it away. Obviously, it's absolutely understandable. We're not very good at staying with what's already here. And when we resist, we usually want something else. Yeah, anything but what's here. And that's the value of mindfulness, is noticing that. Especially because it's not just me that's saying it, but a lot of people are talking about the downside of resisting. And here's one of the most famous of our psychologists of our culture. That which you resist persists. Who are you becoming? Are you becoming a person who doesn't feel well in any place because it's never quite right? It's too cold, it's too hot, the service is crap, or even worse, are you a person who does the opposite, which is another kind of resistance? You accept everything in a passive way. It's kind of passive aggressive. Yeah. Well, yeah, this is what I've brought. What does it mean to live? The 40 minutes are just up. And what I'd like to do is have an exchange with you through questions and answers. We have a facility to do questions and answers. But I just want to start by talking a bit about the current research on the body-mind relationship and the value of being more present in this constant changing dynamic, especially at times of stress. Well, let's go back to that car. Let's go back to that traffic jam. Let's go back to the feeling of being in that car and knowing that what's happening now, you don't want it because there's a lot of loss happening. What the research is showing is that when I resist, when I want any experience but not this one, the mind, as a consequence, will shrink. And when the mind shrinks, it contracts. That means that our repertoire, our choice contracts. A shrunken mind, a contracted mind, has less choice. And in a contracted mind, there is only just one choice, the easiest thing. And the easiest thing is what we've always done. If you look for an easy life and you want to grow emotionally and be more intelligent, I think you're going to have some problems. So when we resist, it's totally understandable. However, the psychology of it is that in a contracted mind, the decision-making process is well, it's affected badly. Our decisions don't have good quality. And every adult that I've talked to about this, over 21, 22 years of age, has already gone through an experience of noticing the mind contracting and has felt it, has felt the urge to do something stupid that they're going to regret. And at least once in their lives, they've noticed, oh, hold on, I'm here in my car. There's nothing I can do. This experience that I'm already having. I might as well open up to it because I'm not going to get to the meeting. Now, it is quite curious, and the research is looking at this because it seems that a whole neural network different to resistance opens up at that time. And I'm not talking about just acquiescing and being passive. I'm talking about being alive to the fact that, yes, this is happening. And what the research is showing is that when the mind opens up to what's already here, it expands. Expands in the sense, not in a cosmic sense. I'm talking about in a sense that we renew inner space, which favors our repertoire gaining some choices and some inner resources that we would never access if we just kept resisting, wanting something else, but not this. When we renew, obviously, our repertoire, when we have, and we can bring to bear on our experience a number of different resources, the question, well, what is necessary agora, or what's necessary now, becomes very pertinent. It becomes very alive. And this is the beginnings of wisdom. We can become, in that moment, we can become a beneficial presence in the world again, due to space and opening up to what's already here. Mindfulness has a very important part in that. At least it's the memory, the remembrance of, I'm here, I'm alive. I don't want this, but I can actually embrace it, breathe with it, hold it. What is necessary right now? What is necessary right now? And that might put us in touch with what Turner discovered on the mast, or what Chosu talks about when he talks about the moon. Well, we're going to leave details on the site afterwards about the courses that I give and the workshops. This is a course that's coming on the 4th of May. And it's for anybody who's going through currently stress. And we're very selective for the 8-week course afterwards online. So we only select people who are really going through stress. And this is the 8-week protocol, international protocol that I've been looking after since 2005 here in Brazil. So yeah, I'm curious to know about what questions we have. I've gone a little bit over, but I really wanted to bring that part of science in. I'm curious to know, has anybody got any questions? There's a little screen here, as far as I know, opened for questions. And I know that Danielle and Fernando are here as well. But if anybody has any questions, please do type them in. Please do send them so that I can respond in the best way I can, see what I can do. I think I've got the right thing opened. While I'm waiting, just to show you on this screen, there is an urban retreat in Portuguese on Instagram and Facebook at 8 o'clock in the morning and 4:30 in the afternoon for a half an hour every day. It's live, and I'm teaching practices for free, twice a day, 7 days a week. I would do it anyway because I like retreats. Oh, they're coming in. Good, good. So, Adriana, what techniques do you recommend us to do with our children at home during this stressful moment? Yes, very good. Well, I think there's a lot of things that can be done with children that that teach and bring us into perception. And I would say that boys and girls can be very different in the amount of disquiet or anxiety that they have, depends. And that meditation, if you want to teach them to meditate, I would be very careful with that. Because I was a boy at one stage, and I don't think I ever would have liked to have been taught meditation. I don't know. But maybe I always used to like, and I have many friends' kids that we chat and we play around with, and my brother's kids as well. I would play around with exercises to do with attention, to bring kids' attention to, for example, opening a fruit. Yeah, a tangerine is perfect for this. Buy some really good tangerines, test them out first, because you know how tangerines are. Sometimes they can be awful. But if you get good tangerines, try and see if you can sit with your kids and go through the whole experience. And you might have to do it in a way where you set it up like a ritual. Kids like that sort of thing. And now it depends what age they are, yeah? But the idea is to eat a piece of the tangerine as if it's for the first time, yeah? And starting with all the texture on the outside, the feel, and then the smell as you open it up. Yeah, go through it step by step. Then there's another thing is watching the sunset. You can watch the sunset. And I do not recommend that you go down to a park with loads of people. But even if you can find a quiet spot, maybe even in your apartment if it's in that direction. Yeah. Another thing that a friend of mine is doing with his daughter, which I think is a very good mindfulness exercise, and it's about going for a walk, and he does it early in the morning. He takes a map of the little square they go to, and he gets a compass, an old compass, and the map is printed. And she is learning how to guide with the compass. That's amazing. That's a really good exercise. Yeah, teaching about north. Yeah, teaching about the directions. Oh, it's fantastic. That's a brilliant idea. Maybe stopping for pauses every so often. Wow. Now, I don't know if those are exactly the kinds of things that you can do outdoors these days, but even indoors, you can do things with compasses. So if I think you need to see if your children are interested in meditation. A lot of young people are very interested in movement and more kind of games. So, yeah. The other thing is drawing. Drawing on the Right Side of Your Brain by Betty Edwards, especially for adolescents. But even children of about 8 or 9, that's an amazing book. And if you read it as an adult, you can get the exercises and they're brilliant, the exercises, and teach your children and learn with them how to draw. Now, it may not seem like mindfulness, but it's getting them off their phones. So yeah, so Julie Hutchinson, I hope that's okay, Adriana. Yeah, there's a lot of information online and some very good people who are child psychologists. I think it's always good to find a child psychologist who's good at teaching. Julie Hutchinson, just saying thank you. I'm very grateful for this. I'm from Belfast. Yeah, fantastic. Well, Julie, yeah, I love your city. Yeah, I've got fond memories of Belfast, and I'm being transported to Belfast right now. Great, fantastic. Yeah, Julian Symes, just like to thank you so much. It was wonderful. That's great. I hope there's still a little bit more as we've got 10 minutes. Moira, do we practice mindfulness naturally when we are children and then we lose it? Or is it something we children and adults have to learn to practice and develop? I think it's a bit of both. And a child's mind, if you stay with a child's mind is very fast. I mean, it can cry and giggle and then cry again and then giggle again in space of a very short time. So I don't think it's really useful to be sentimental about children and think that they're enlightened. I'm not a great fan of that. I think that that's an adult's fantasy being projected onto a child. However, there are things about childhood. I mean, let's face it. Children have the freedom to do very little and play and be useless. You know, that's a big challenge for adults. You know, they can find something like a box. And I remember it. You know, my father, he would open up his shirts and he'd give me the cardboard from inside the shirt. And then I would spend hours on the floor on Saturday cutting the cardboard to make something. I remember taking stones in the garden and breaking them and smelling. Yeah, wow. Or I would take and my brothers taught me this, which is a bit more dangerous. It would be to take a magnifying glass and to focus the rays of the sun onto a leaf or a page and watch it burn, but see the image of the sun and the power. So they were the beginnings of my science days. But that wonder, I think maybe what we need to relearn is to sit and do nothing and open up to the fact, to the wonder that life on this huge scale is trying to teach us something. And what's missing maybe is our connection and our receptivity to that which it's trying to teach us. Yeah. And if we keep rushing around all the time, we're never going to see that. So I think maybe there are things you can do with kids, even to talk about this, or not in a psychological way, but you maybe to get into that stage with them more, the wonder. Yeah. So there you go. Or Patricia Lima, how do you believe we could handle with frustration feelings? Oh yeah, my own and among others in the family. Well, we can only handle our own feelings, and most of us can't even handle those. But look, Patricia, here's something, and I think this is really important. There is a signal, a human sign, a human moment, a human behavior that is universal. It's relatively easy to access and recognize. So everybody does it. It's relatively easy to recognize. It happens with a certain frequency, as I probably get a sense that happens with you, and it does happen with me. And it's a very, very valuable signal for self-perception and self-knowledge. And I've already mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again. That's any moment during your day, wherever you are, where in that moment you want another experience, but not this one. So maybe that's you want quiet and the kid upstairs is rolling around on his skateboard again. Yeah. Or you really just want to go out and you're just torn. Your mind is torn because you're thinking of possible consequences. Or you're going to bed and you have a dry cough and you're starting to feel a bit hot. So there are a number, oh God, life is full of them. It always has been. I'm not going to come up with anything magic, but one way that you can begin to learn to deal with frustration is getting close to it and learning from the frustration. And if you are in a moment of resistance, as we saw Jung talk about, or that farmer who built the wall, you're at a very important moment in human behavior and human perception. It's what some of us call a wake-up call. You remember those calls that we used to get in hotels when we didn't have cell phones, and they wake us at 5 in the morning and say, your breakfast ready. So the signal of resistance, I would really encourage you to become aware of that, but not just aware of it, to become curious. And I would say curious in the sense of moving towards it, noticing, something's happening. Instead of trying to find out why it's happening, stay with it. And I'll tell you why. Patricia, many, many people in our classes have stayed with frustration and anger for long enough, opening to it, yeah, giving it space to realize that in the midst of the anger in their heart, there's another emotion. Some people discover sadness. Some people discover fear. Some people discover deception or disappointment. Now, if I just stay on the surface in low resolution, with the frustration, I probably will never notice that actually I'm sad or disappointed or afraid. And it is kind of curious. If I tell somebody, look, I'm really frustrated with you, I'll get a certain response. But if I get in touch with something like sadness and say, do you know something? I am really sad about what's happening here. The person may not understand, but if it's really from that place, I think you have more chance that the person's going to listen and realize there's something happening with you that's important. And we're coming to the end. So these are great questions, and I'm wanting to be able to give them all. God, there's loads of them. I want to give them enough attention. Alex, any suggestions for how to quiet a mind that just won't turn off, especially at night? Yeah. I mean, our courses and classes always teach this, and I do this. Sit in bed before you go to bed. I mean, first of all, one thing is sleep hygiene. If you've got a light that's on somewhere near, that is going to keep you awake. If you're using your iPad or television in the half hour before going to bed, that's not going to be great. And the number of cups of coffee as well, or caffeine in your system. Some people can do it before going to bed, but there's a lot of people can't. And they're the obvious things. But from the point of view of mindfulness, having taken care of the other factors, I would say just sit on on your pillow, go inside like we did, follow the breathing, don't have to change the breathing. The mind goes away. Okay, come back to the breathing. The mind goes away. Okay, come back to the breathing. And just do that. And what will happen, I'm pretty sure, because it always happens to me, is that you start to go, sleep kicks in. And then set everything up so that when sleep kicks in, you don't have to do anything. You just remove the pillow, lie down, put your head on it, and go asleep. Give it a try. And if you wake up during the night, I know it's hard to do, but you may want to repeat that. I'm going to leave it there. I think I really have to be careful with my time. I'm Irish, and you know, when the first words we speak when we're born is once upon a time, and it's a dangerous thing to ask Irish men questions. Fernando, Danielle, I'm curious about how we finish here. I'm sorry for people who I haven't managed to get to. Yeah. Oh, Fernanda is saying, and then Jessica. Yeah, there's a lot of questions, but how do we finish up here? Is that it? Should I just say goodbye? Is it? Does somebody say something? Does Dan come in? How do we wrap up here? Or do we still have a few minutes? I don't know. Alex, yeah. I hope we meet again. Well, as far as I know, that's me. I'll stop sharing. I think I've brought what I've been asked to bring. It's been wonderful to spend time with all of you. I know Sylvia Guimarães is a great friend, and she got in touch today and said, oh, look, you're going to be online at Avenues. And she was so happy. And she knows most of you, especially in the team, a colleague of yours. Good. So, well, if that's it, maybe I will just say goodbye and leave it there. Fernando? Fernanda? Dan? Well, maybe that's it. Okay. I was asked to give an hour, so I hope I'm doing it right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks very much. I hope that's been useful. Please do.
Stephen, thank you a lot. That's Fernando here. I want to thank you a lot on behalf of Avenues the World School, on behalf of all the attendees here. It was more than a pleasure. Thank you. I'm pretty sure everybody liked and enjoyed the moment being present here, and we're gonna continue this conversation later on.
Oh, great! Yes, yes, please do. So I hope at some stage I get to meet some of you in person. If you've got interest in the courses or the workshops I do, Fernando will probably post some of the information later on. Thank you so much, folks. I'm going to another class now. So take care. Bye-bye. All the best.